My daughter cut me out of the wedding I paid for and ordered security to stop me, so I pulled the funding and discovered the ugly truth about her marriage exposed. My daughter, Laura, she's 28 now, blocked me from her own wedding. Let that sink in for a minute. I was blocked from a wedding that I was literally paying for. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but I figured sharing this here might help me sort things out, or at least let me vent a little. First off, let me just say this. Laura has always been a bit of a handful, even when she was a kid. We had our ups and downs, but what parent and kid don't, right? Still, I never imagined things would go this far. I mean, yeah, we've had disagreements in the past, but nothing that would make me think she'd go this extreme. Anyway, I'll try to keep this as clear as possible. Laura has been with her fiancé, Matt, for a few years now. They're not exactly rolling in money. So when they started planning the wedding, I offered to cover the costs. It seemed like a nice gesture, and honestly, I wanted to help them start their marriage on the right foot. I know weddings are expensive as hell, and since they were struggling, I figured, why not? It was my way of showing support. I was happy to do it, and I thought she'd appreciate the help. It's a big moment, right? Your daughter's wedding, the day your kid steps into a new chapter of life. I wasn't expecting a parade or anything, but maybe a little gratitude would have been nice. But things started going sideways not long after that. So, fast forward a bit. The wedding planning is well underway, and Laura seemed to have everything under control. I wasn't too involved in the little details. Honestly, I wasn't trying to micromanage her wedding. I trusted she could handle it. But one day, I thought it would be nice to add my brother, Mark, to the guest list. He and Laura have always been close, and I figured it wouldn't be a problem. Just one more person, right? No big deal. I called up the wedding planner to ask if they could add Mark, and that's where things got weird. The planner sounded kind of awkward when I asked. He hesitated and then told me the guest list was full. Full? How is that possible? It's a wedding, not a movie. You can always squeeze in one more, right? So I pushed a little, thinking maybe he misunderstood or there was a mistake. Finally, after some back and forth, the planner sent me the guest list. And let me tell you, when I opened that list, my heart stopped for a second. I wasn't on it. Neither was Linda, my wife. I'm sitting there, staring at this list of people I barely know, but my own name isn't there. Not mine, not Linda's. At this point, I'm beyond confused. I thought there has to be some mistake. I mean, how could my own daughter leave me off the list for her wedding, especially when I'm the one footing the bill? It didn't make any sense. So I called the planner back, trying to stay calm, but my mind was racing. I asked him straight up, why aren't we on the guest list? Did Laura forget? The planner hesitated again and then dropped the bomb. He told me that Laura specifically instructed him not to invite me or Linda. And on top of that, she requested extra security to make sure we couldn't even enter the venue if we tried. I sat there, stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own daughter was planning her wedding behind my back and went as far as hiring security to keep me out. I mean, what the hell? At this point, I'm livid. I asked the planner to show me proof because this has to be a misunderstanding, right? Maybe there was a miscommunication or something. But nope. He forwarded me the emails, and there it was, in plain black and white. Laura had been planning this for weeks and made it clear that I wasn't welcome. I didn't know what to do. I felt completely blindsided. All this time, I thought I was doing something good for her, helping her out, supporting her, and she's actively keeping me from her wedding. I can't even begin to explain how hurt I was. But what hit me the hardest wasn't just being left off the guest list. It was the fact that she planned it this way. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip-up. She went out of her way to make sure I wouldn't be there. And for what? Because we had a few arguments over the years? Because I didn't always agree with her choices? That's part of being a parent. You try to guide your kids, even when they don't want to hear it. I kept thinking back to all the times I supported her, when she got in trouble in school, when she was hanging with the wrong crowd, when we had to deal with some really tough situations. I was always there, even when she was angry at the world. I tried to be the one she could count on, and now she's shutting me out of one of the biggest moments of her life. And I don't even get to know why. I don't want to come off as the victim here, but it felt like a slap in the face, a really cold, calculated slap. I've seen her go through phases where she'd be mad at me for something small, but she usually came around. This felt different. This felt permanent. After getting off the phone with the planner, I just sat there, staring at the email. I must have read it 100 times, hoping I'd see something that would make it all make sense, but nothing did. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, but mixed with the anger was a deep sadness. It's hard to describe, but there's this feeling you get when you realize your own child doesn't want you in their life. It's like a punch to the gut, and I couldn't shake it. I kept trying to figure out what I did to deserve this. What could have pushed her this far? Sure, we've had our share of disagreements, but I never thought it would come to this. Blocking me from her wedding, making sure I couldn't even show up if I wanted to. It's like she was punishing me, but for what? I wish I had some big conclusion to this part of the story, but I don't. That's where I was left, stunned, confused, and heartbroken. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was clear: this wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about something much deeper, and I had no idea how to fix it. Alright, so after getting that guest list and seeing my name nowhere on it, I was fuming. I couldn't just sit around with that information and do nothing. I mean, how was I supposed to act like everything was fine after finding out my own daughter had blocked me from her wedding? I knew I had to confront Laura and figure out what the hell was going on. There was no way I could just let this slide without getting some answers. So, I tried calling her. No response. Tried again, straight to voicemail. This went on for the whole day. I get it, she's busy with wedding prep and all, but I was desperate for some clarity at this point. I couldn't tell if I was more angry or hurt, but I needed to talk to her. I left her a voicemail asking her to call me back. Nothing, just silence. That silence was driving me crazy. After a day or two of no response, I hit my breaking point. If she wasn't going to come to me, I'd go to her. So I got in the car and drove over to her apartment. It wasn't far from where I live, and honestly, I didn't even think about what I was going to say. I just knew I needed to talk to her face to face. I figured maybe she could explain, maybe we could talk it out, or maybe I was being naive thinking she'd have some reasonable explanation for all this. When I got to her place, I was buzzing with adrenaline. My head was full of all the things I wanted to say, but at the same time, I wasn't sure what to expect. I knocked on the door, and after what felt like forever, Laura opened it. She looked at me like she wasn't even surprised I was there, like she'd been expecting this confrontation. That pissed me off even more, but I tried to stay calm. No need to go full-on crazy right at the start, right? We stood there for a second, and then she just asked, "What do you want, Dad?" Like I was some kind of stranger showing up uninvited. I told her straight up, "I want to know why my name isn't on the guest list. Why the hell would you block me from your wedding?" She sighed, rolled her eyes, and said something like, "I thought you'd figure it out eventually." That just made me angrier. I asked her again, trying to stay calm, but my voice was definitely shaking by this point. "Why, Laura? Why would you do this?" Her response? "It saved you the trouble of showing up." She said it so casually, like this whole thing was no big deal. I was standing there, ready to explode, and she was acting like it was just another Wednesday afternoon. "I'll send you the pictures if I have time," she added with this dismissive shrug. That's when I lost it. I couldn't hold back anymore. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I yelled. I was shaking, full of this mix of rage and heartbreak. I mean, after everything I'd done for her, this is how she treats me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How does a daughter block her own dad from her wedding and then act like it's no big deal? But it didn't stop there. She had more to say, and none of it was good. She started listing out all these reasons for why I deserved to be left off the guest list. She said I never took her side, that I was always against her, that I'd flaunted Linda, my wife, her stepmom, in her face. She even brought up stuff from years ago, things I thought we'd moved past. She talked about times when she needed me to stand up for her and I didn't, like when she was fighting with her cousin or when she got into trouble at school. Now, I won't lie. There were times when I couldn't defend her. She wasn't always in the right, and I wasn't going to support her when she was clearly wrong. I tried to explain that to her, but she wasn't having it. She was convinced that I'd been against her for years, that I'd abandoned her, and that this whole wedding thing was just payback. She even brought up stuff from when she was younger, like the time we had to deal with her getting caught with pills. Yeah, she had her rough patches, but I was there for her. I supported her through all of that, even when it was hard. I didn't turn my back on her when she needed help. I tried to guide her, get her the help she needed, and make sure she stayed on track. But apparently, none of that mattered. In her mind, I'd failed her in every way that counted. Standing there, listening to her unload all this anger, I realized how deep the resentment ran. It wasn't just about this wedding. It was years of built-up frustration that I didn't even know she was holding on to. And the way she was throwing it all at me now, like it was my fault she was so messed up, was just too much. At some point, I started tearing up. I didn't even mean to. It just happened. I asked her, practically begging, "What did I do that was so terrible, Laura? Why are you treating me like this?" I hoped, deep down, that maybe she'd show some sign of regret or empathy, that she'd soften, even just a little. But no, she stayed cold. "You never had my back," she said. "You were always more concerned with your new life with Linda. You didn't care about me." That hit like a punch to the gut. I tried to explain to her that I always cared, that I loved her more than anything, but she was convinced I'd chosen my new family over her. I didn't know what to say. I was standing there in her apartment doorway, trying to figure out how we got to this point. She didn't want me at her wedding. She didn't want me in her life, apparently, and nothing I said was going to change that. It felt like we were speaking two different languages. Every time I tried to explain myself, she'd throw something else back at me, like she'd been keeping a list of all the ways I'd failed her over the years. Eventually, she told me I was just bringing negativity into her life, and that I needed to leave. She said I wasn't welcome at the wedding or in her life if I couldn't accept that. I walked out of there completely defeated. I didn't know what else to do. My own daughter didn't want me at her wedding, and no matter how much I tried to understand why, it all came back to this resentment she'd been holding on to for years. I was lost, hurt, and honestly, more confused than ever. After I left Laura's apartment that day, I was wrecked. I didn't know what to do or where to go from there. The whole confrontation felt like it went nowhere, and everything she said just kept playing over and over in my head. I tried to keep it together, but I felt completely blindsided by her level of anger toward me. I mean, I knew we weren't super close, but to find out she thought so little of me, that hit hard. A few days went by after that, and I still hadn't heard from her. I was trying to give her space, hoping maybe she'd come around or at least calm down enough to talk rationally. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. The wedding was coming up fast, and I didn't know if I was supposed to just sit there and pretend everything was fine. I couldn't do that. I was at home with my wife Linda, telling her everything that went down. Linda's always been patient with Laura, way more patient than I've been, but even she was done at this point. She said it was time for me to stop letting Laura walk all over me. She was right. I'd spent so much time trying to make Laura happy, to keep some kind of peace between us, but nothing ever seemed to be enough. It was like no matter what I did, I couldn't win. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I couldn't just keep funding a wedding that I wasn't welcome at. I mean, think about it. I was paying for this huge celebration, covering everything from the venue to the food, and I wasn't even allowed to attend. It felt ridiculous. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Laura didn't care. She didn't care that I was hurt. She didn't care about all the money I'd spent. She didn't care about anything except herself. So I picked up the phone and called the wedding venue. I told them to cancel everything. I knew I wasn't getting my deposits back, but at that point I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about that anymore. I just couldn't stand the idea of her going through with this wedding while I was being treated like I didn't exist. I had to take a stand, even if it hurt. The venue manager was shocked when I told him to cancel. I guess it's not every day someone pulls the plug on a wedding like that, especially so close to the date. But I didn't hesitate. I told him to go ahead and call off the caterers, the decorators, everything. I even considered canceling the wedding planner too, but I stopped myself. I didn't want to give Laura too much time to find a backup plan. I figured if I canceled just enough, she'd be left scrambling. Now I know what some people might say, that I was being petty, that I should have just let her have the wedding and dealt with the aftermath later. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about the wedding. It was about respect. I was her father and she had treated me like I didn't matter. I wasn't going to sit back and let her use me. I wasn't going to keep being her doormat. After I made the call, I sat down with Linda and we talked it over. She supported my decision 100%. She said something I'll never forget. If she doesn't respect you enough to invite you to her wedding, she doesn't deserve your money. And she was right. I had bent over backward for Laura for years, always trying to be the bigger person, always giving in. But enough was enough. The next day, things really started to unravel. The wedding planner called, frantic, saying they couldn't get into the venue to start setting up. Apparently, the venue staff had already started clearing out everything. When Laura found out, I can only imagine her reaction. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard from a friend that there was absolute chaos. Guests were confused, vendors were showing up with no place to set up, and nobody had any idea what was going on. Laura tried calling me, of course, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't in the mood for another screaming match, and frankly, I didn't owe her any more explanations. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I knew she'd be furious, but after everything she'd put me through, I didn't care. She could figure it out on her own. That evening, she actually showed up at my house. I wasn't really surprised. Laura's not the type to just let things go. But I wasn't about to have a face-to-face confrontation with her again. I needed space, so I had already taken the precaution of changing the gate code, so she couldn't just waltz in whenever she wanted. I wasn't hiding from her or anything, but I didn't want to let her storm in and tear into me. I'd had enough of her words. She pounded on the gate for a while, yelling for me to come out. I just sat inside, listening but not responding. There was nothing more to say. She'd made it clear where we stood, and this was me making it clear that I wasn't going to keep letting her take advantage of me. Eventually, she gave up and left, but I knew this wasn't over. I talked to my parents later, and they weren't exactly thrilled with how I handled it. They kept saying things like, "You can't be this harsh with your own kid, and parents shouldn't abandon their children no matter what." I get where they were coming from, but they didn't see what I'd been dealing with all these years. They didn't see the constant disrespect, the entitlement, the way she had treated Linda and me. They thought I was being too harsh, but I wasn't going to change my mind. I wasn't going to let Laura's actions slide anymore. The whole thing left me feeling conflicted, though. On one hand, I knew I had done the right thing by standing up for myself, but on the other hand, this was my daughter. No matter how much she had hurt me, there was still this nagging feeling of guilt in the back of my mind. I kept thinking, did I go too far? Should I have just let her have the wedding and dealt with everything later? But then I remembered how she had looked me in the eye and told me she didn't want me there. That was the moment I knew I couldn't keep bending over backward for her anymore. So, yeah, that's where things ended up. Laura's wedding plans were in shambles, and I was left wondering if there was ever going to be any kind of reconciliation. But at the end of the day, I had to protect myself. I had to protect my own peace, even if it meant losing my daughter in the process. And honestly, I don't regret it. After the whole mess with canceling the wedding, I expected some kind of fallout, but I didn't realize just how fast everything would unravel. The day after I canceled the venue, the wedding planner called me up in a complete panic. He started off all formal, trying to explain the situation, but it was obvious he was freaking out. The venue had already started, shutting things down, and the caterers and decorators were locked out. Apparently, when they got to the venue that morning, security showed them the email I sent about the cancellation, and that's when everything went sideways. He was calling to ask if there was any way to salvage the situation, but I wasn't interested in playing nice anymore. I told him straight up, I'm not paying for anything. The wedding's off as far as I'm concerned. He stammered a bit, trying to reason with me, but I wasn't budging. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to be bullied into changing it just because everyone else was freaking out. The planner kept going on about how the vendors needed to be paid, and how there was still time to sort things out if I just covered the remaining costs. I cut him off and told him it was no longer my problem. "You'll have to talk to Laura about that," I said, and hung up. A part of me felt bad for the guy. He was just doing his job, but this situation wasn't my mess to clean up anymore. Laura had made it clear that she didn't want me involved, so I was done being the one to fix everything. Now, what happened next? I didn't find out until much later, but apparently, when Laura showed up at the venue and found out it was canceled, she absolutely lost it. I'm talking full-blown meltdown. From what I heard, she showed up expecting to see everything set up and ready to go, but instead, the place was empty. No tables, no decorations, no caterers, nothing. Just a locked gate and a confused security guard telling her she couldn't enter. She tried to call me again, of course, but I'd already blocked her number. I wasn't going to deal with another screaming match. I guess she must have thought I was bluffing, or that I'd cave at the last minute, but when she realized I was serious, things really escalated. The venue security told her she couldn't come in, and that's when she snapped. From what I've been told, she started screaming at the security guards, demanding they let her in. She even threatened to sue the venue, which, let's be real, wasn't going to get her anywhere. At one point, she tried to force her way in, and that's when the guards called the cops. If it weren't for Matt, her fiancé, showing up when he did, I'm pretty sure she would have been arrested for trespassing. He managed to calm her down just before things got really out of hand, but by then, the damage was done. Her perfect day was officially ruined. Now, while all this chaos was going down at the venue, I was at home, just waiting for the inevitable knock at my door. I knew Laura wasn't the type to let something like this go, and sure enough, she showed up later that afternoon. She was banging on the gate, yelling for me to come out, but I stayed inside. I'd already decided there was no point in having another confrontation. We'd said everything that needed to be said. I could hear her yelling, telling me how I'd ruined everything and how I was being selfish. Part of me wanted to go out there and try to talk to her, to explain why I did what I did, but another part of me knew it wouldn't make any difference. Laura had made up her mind about me a long time ago, and nothing I said was going to change that. So I stayed inside, letting her rant until she eventually gave up and left. After she was gone, I sat down with Linda, and we talked about what had happened. Linda, as usual, was supportive. She kept telling me that I'd done the right thing, that it was about time I stood up for myself, but I couldn't help feeling conflicted. On one hand, I knew I had to put my foot down. Laura's behavior had been out of control for years, and this was the final straw. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the guilt that came with knowing I'd been the one to ruin my own daughter's wedding. As the days went by, word started to spread through the family about what had happened. I hadn't told anyone yet, but apparently Laura had gone and told her side of the story to anyone who would listen. Pretty soon, I was getting calls from relatives asking me why I'd done it. Why I couldn't just let her have her day. My parents especially were disappointed. They didn't agree with how Laura had treated me, but they still thought I should have just let the wedding happen and dealt with everything afterward. I tried explaining to them that it wasn't just about the wedding. This was years of resentment and disrespect all coming to a head. I couldn't keep being the one to fix everything, especially when she didn't want me there in the first place. But they didn't get it. To them, it was just another case of a parent and child having a falling out, something that could be patched up with time. But to me, it felt like something way bigger. This wasn't just a temporary fight. It felt like a breaking point in our relationship, and I didn't know if there was any coming back from it. The rest of the week was quiet. Laura didn't try to contact me again, and I didn't reach out either. I was trying to give myself some space to process everything, but no matter what I did, the guilt kept creeping back in. I kept thinking, was I too harsh? Should I have just sucked it up and let the wedding happen? I talked to Linda about it again, and she reminded me of all the times Laura had walked all over me, all the times I'd given in just to keep the peace. She was right. I'd spent so many years bending over backward for Laura, trying to make her happy, and where had that gotten me? Shut out of her wedding, blocked from one of the most important moments of her life. At some point, enough is enough. That's what I kept telling myself anyway. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I'd made a mistake. Not in standing up for myself, that part I was sure of, but in the way I went about it. Canceling the wedding like that, without any warning. Maybe I could have handled it differently. Maybe if I tried one more time to talk to her, we could have avoided all this. But then I'd remember how she looked at me during that last confrontation, how cold and dismissive she was, and I knew there was no reasoning with her. This wasn't just a small argument. This was the result of years of pent-up anger and resentment, and it was clear she wasn't going to back down. So, yeah, that's how the wedding fell apart. It wasn't pretty, and it sure as hell wasn't easy, but at the end of the day, I had to stand my ground. And while I still felt guilty, I knew that I couldn't keep letting her walk all over me. The fallout was messy, but it was necessary. Update. A week ago, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Laura's husband, Matt. It got tense to think if some mishap had happened to her. He said that she was fine, but she wanted to meet me in person. It came as a surprise to me. I asked him the reason, but he said he would tell me when we met. He said he was in the city, and if I was free, we could meet up for dinner. I said okay. I secretly wished that it was a meeting to reconcile Laura and me. I thought she wanted to meet me but was ashamed to face me, so Matt was being the middleman. I went there with so much hope. After all, I'm a father, right? To my dismay, Matt was alone. I asked about Laura. He said he doesn't know. My heart sank, and I asked if something had happened to her and if she was fine. He told me that they were separated. He went on to reveal how Laura had been abusive in her marriage. She had real anger issues and would throw stuff at Matt and break household stuff, even in a minor argument. He tolerated her until he could, and when the situation got worse, he got separated from her. He said that Laura had a psychological issue, and that she blamed others for any inconvenience that happened to her. She constantly used to fight with him because they had to leave the city and shift there because he got better opportunities there. Laura didn't lose anything with this change. She also got a similar paying job in that city. Yeah, she was angry with him for taking her away from her hometown. That was just one thing. Laura used to be always angry at Matt and fight with him. He said that there was one more reason why he wanted to meet me in person. He wanted to say sorry. He said he witnessed Laura's cruelty towards me, Linda, and my parents, but he did not intervene because Laura had manipulated him against all of us. He said that he brought misery upon himself by overlooking all the red flags. I said it was not his fault at all. It was Laura's fault, and to some extent, maybe mine, because I was not able to raise her properly. I also said sorry to him because of whatever he had been through with Laura. Matt requested me for one last favor. He said Laura had been destroyed by the separation. She's begging him to take her back, but he has fallen out of love with her because of her abuse. Yet, he wishes well for her. He asked me if I could reach out to her and support her during the bad times. She literally had no friends because she lost everyone, thanks to her temper. She has no real permanent friend in her life. He asked me to take her to therapy or something. I said I wish I could, but she wouldn't let me come near her. He understood my circumstances, and I understood his. We both wanted to help Laura. If at all, she would let us do so. After knowing that, I couldn't help but go to meet Laura. It turned out to be as expected. She dropped explosions on me and Linda, though I showed up alone. I didn't want Linda to witness Laura's wrath. I apologized to her to calm her down. I didn't think about right and wrong at that time. She was going through a rough time and I wanted to help her out. I said she could curse me whatever she wanted, but she needed to see a therapist first. She didn't listen and dug up the past. She yelled that she hated Linda to the extent that she wanted to kill her. She said that she blocked us from her wedding because she was embarrassed to introduce Linda as her stepmom. She was ashamed of her and was ashamed of me for marrying her. She didn't listen to me and chased me out of the house. She blamed me for all of her miseries in life. I don't know if I was right or wrong, and honestly, I don't care. I want her to come out of this, but I don't know how to help her. Update. Thanks for all the moral support. I was very disturbed while making the last update. The space really helped me release my nerves. Linda suggested that I take the help of Laura's best friend from school. Her family was her neighbors, so we knew each other quite well. She was now living in South Africa. I reached out to her on social media and told her about the situation. I requested her to contact Laura, and if she opened up to her, I was betting that she would because she was the only one with whom Laura never had a fight. She assured me that she would help me and convince Laura to go to therapy, and gladly, she did. Laura is going to therapy, and I'm guessing it's going well because a week ago she met my parents and apologized to them for her misconduct. She confessed that her hatred grew so badly she was unable to control it. But she also said that she was never going to forgive me and still blames me for everything. I don't despise her anymore. I just wish her a good life, even if I'm not part of that. Thanks for all the support. I wish no father had to go through this when your child hates you to this level.